Hi everyone, this is Stephanie at High Tower Stitching with today's video, and it is a variation of the log cabin, and it's really neat. And I had a long title. It's called The Lovely Double Time, or a twice as much fun variation for making the log cabin block. This neat block came from the McCall's Quilting Magazine, November, December of 2021. It's really nice and current. And here is a sample of one of the blocks, because I always like you to see that before we get started. And I had so much fun doing that, I did another one. I seem to be in that habit right now of trying to get different things that I can see. Here was another one. And then finally, as we're getting close to thinking about the December holidays, here is one, that last one that I did. And you can see it is really nice, and it really went together well. And here's a picture from the magazine that shows you the layout for these 16 log cabin blocks. And if you remember, there's a corner that's always going to be the light corner, and then there's a corner that's the dark. She used all different fabrics and then put this together. You could use the same family that you were working on and do that. But this turned out really pretty. And the first thing that I did was I picked the colors that I wanted to use. Now, the thing that I found out about doing this one is that the lights are very similar. If you look at these, they almost don't look like there's any difference in there. So they're going to be kind of subtle. And we'll look back at the others again, and you'll see how close. Or let me pull one again. And look at this light section on this block. You have a brown, then you have a very light brown. They're very similar. You don't want them to be totally different. You want them to be similar. And so I started with those two colors because I just really liked those. And then I said, well, what could I do towards my dark corner? And here what you're going to need is a medium dark and then a darker dark, so that you have that contrast. Now, this one has a contrast, but it's between the two colors that I chose. On the Christmas one, I have a contrast, and this is a little lighter, and this is very dark, but it has a really contrast on that side. And the one thing that you will notice is that I'm missing a color. That's going to be the center of my fabrics. And when I first started, I didn't know which color I wanted to put in the center. So I went ahead and I built my strips and then decided on a color. You may have a color that you know you want to use already, and you just pick that one, and that you make a 4-inch square. The first thing that you want to do is you want to cut your strips, and all of the colors are 1.5 inches wide, and the light ones need to be at least 30 inches long. But you're going to find out they don't have to be continuous piece. But if you have one, that's nice. And the same thing with the dark, you're going to have 1.5 by 38 inches. But there again, it doesn't have to be continuous because you're going to cut these into sections when you get ready. One thing I want to remind you is that there is a grain with the material, and that is the way that does not stretch, and then the other way stretches, and that's going to play into when you're sewing your pieces together. Now this one I cut, and I can feel by doing this to it now, and I could have done that with the fabric before I cut it, that one will not stretch. Let's see, that one won't stretch. This one has got some stretch. To get a nice long piece, I had a narrow piece, and if you can see, it's pulling. So I've got to be real careful when I sew that one and this one together that I don't stretch it and distort the material. And the same thing comes with ironing it, that I don't distort it. One of the things she used was fat eighths, and that would give you the length. And then just remember that that will stretch that way, and that's fine as long as you're careful. So you've sewn some strips together, and then you can either cut those before you iron them, or you can go ahead and press the seam and then open the seam. Now remember, don't iron it, just press down, pick it up, press down, and make strips. Now these are 2 pieces I had left after I had made my strips. And use 1/4 inch seams. And once we get the pieces ready to cut, we're going to be looking for a 4-inch piece, a 6-inch piece, an 8, and a 10 out of the light fabrics. Then we're going to look for, out of our darks, we want a 6-inch piece, 8-inch, 10-inch, and a 12-inch. And if you look at this, you can see that I have my pieces ready. I've got a 4-inch, 6-inch, 8-inch, 10-inch. I've got a 6, 8, 10, and 12. Now we're just about ready to build our block, but you can see I've got 3 4-inch squares picked out. I'm still not sure which one I'm going to use. So just for right now, I think I'll just pull the dark one and we'll be ready to start. And when you start, there's your 4-inch square. You want to start with your light, and you want the darkest part of your light facing out. And we would sew that piece on first. And this will start looking a little distorted because I don't have my seams, but you can see how it'll go. Once I get that light side, then I want the 6-inch light. And this time, it's going to go into the center. So I would stitch that piece on. And there I've made my light corner. And we're going to go clockwise. So we're going to go ahead and pick up our first dark. And the first dark piece has the darkest part going out. And as we travel around, and I had them laid out, I know which comes next. And I'm going to have my darkest part in this time. I chose this to be the dark. You could have chosen the rose to be the dark. On this one, it won't matter. So now we've made our first round, and we only have one more round to do. So again, we're going to start over here on the left, and we're going to start with our dark being out on the light side. See, the green is out. Then I'm going to move to the top. And I'm going to sew this one on, and this time the dark is in. And that's so that if you start to look, these will match up, just like these matched up. And that's where you get that nice look from the log cabin. Then I'm going to go to my darker colors. The next one, whichever color you want for your dark, goes on the outside. See, it's starting to look a little distorted because it's not sewn together yet. And then I finally have the last piece, and the darkest goes to the inside. And once I get that sewn together, you can see how it looks. Now, this is a great time for me to see if I have even found the color that I want. And that's closer, because that gives me a nice contrast. And then this one gives it a whole different look. It depends what you're looking for when you do it. And like I said, you might already have the one that's ready when you get when you're ready. And here is the breakout. If you can't find the magazine, here's the way I did it. Here was my center. Here was my L4, L6, so my lights, then my darks, then my lights, and then my darks. And it's so much fun because all of a sudden you have all those strips and you didn't have to do one after one after one after one like you normally would with log cabin. You're able to put them on two at a time. And now I just take you back to the original one that I had done, and you can see there's my center with red. Here was my first set, my second set, my third set, which were dark and dark, and then the last one that went all the way around. And now you can see why I call this a lovely double time and twice as much fun, because there's so much that you can do with this log cabin pattern, this variation. This is Stephanie at High Tower Stitching. Thank you for watching. If I have any notes that are things that I forgot, I'll write those in the description. If this is helpful or fun to you, please subscribe and hit like and leave comments. Thank you.